Redefining Regional, the Malayalam edition. Jio MAMI is an Indian international film festival. For the last 21 years, we have programmed films and featured artists from all languages across India and the best of world cinema. When we reimagined the festival 6 years ago, India became the focus for us. We have in the room today some of the most incredible creators working in the Malayalam industry who have steadily gained national clout or deserve to have their work recognized beyond borders. Filmmakers Aashiq Abu, Anjali Menon, Sanu Varghese, Geetu Mohandas, Mahesh Narayanan, Jio Baby, Don Palatara, actors Parvathy Thiruvothu, Rima Kalingal, Darshana Rajendran, Annaban, Joju George, and Roshan Mathew. Co-hosting the session with me today is filmmaker Bejoy Nambiar. Over the last few years, Bejoy has helped us find talent and films from the South. Thank you so much, Bejoy, and thank you everyone for making the time for us. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Listen, I just wanted to find a way to hang out with this cool bunch. And I thought this is the only way to do this right now, so why not? But I have a question for you. That if there is one industry that has been in overdrive during the pandemic, it is you guys. Okay, you're making everyone look like slackers. I have evidence of this enviable pandemic productivity. Out of the projects that released during the pandemic in the theaters or OTT from the Malayalam industry, some of you here have also collaborated with each other on these. Anam Penam, the anthology in which you directed a chapter, Aashiq, with Darshana Rajendran and Roshan Mathew. Other chapters in the anthology have Parvathy and Joju George. Arcarium, it took a pandemic, Sanu, for you to get down to writing and directing your first film. Parvathy headlined the cast. Aashiq produced the film and Mahesh Narayanan edited the film. Halal Love Story, produced by Aashiq Abu with Joju George and Parvathy. See You Soon, directed by Mahesh Narayanan with Darshana Rajendran and Roshan Mathew headlining the cast. Nayat with Joju George, edited by Mahesh Narayanan. Vartamanam with Parvathy and Roshan Mathew. Aashiq, you finished shooting your next feature, Narayanan, with Annaban, co-produced by Rima. Anjali, your film Rasa was in the co-production market at Film Bazaar. Geetu, you've been busy mounting and casting for your next film. Mahesh Narayanan's Malik was filmed during the pandemic. Sanu Varghese has shot it. Joju George is part of the cast. And with the Great Indian Kitchen, Jio Baby, you've single-handedly earned lifetime brownie points with every...
Straight away, your influences growing up. So if you can just name 2 to 3 filmmakers, 2 to 3 actors that influenced each one of you. So if you can, if individually, if you can just tell me which are the filmmakers that influenced you when you were growing up and it shaped you as an actor, as a filmmaker. So if you can just start off with that. So I'll start off with the first person on my screen, that's Darshana. So Darshana, you can start.
So when I was a child, my uncle he was a documentary filmmaker, and he used to collect films from all over the world. And I remember watching Children of Heaven when I was a child, and I think that still stays with me.
Any particular actor that
I grew up with a lot of as a child, my sister and I used to watch a lot of Bollywood. So there was a lot of Shah Rukh Khan and Kajol, and so yeah, these are the things I grew up on for sure.
Parvathy?
Until I became an actor, I did not actually watch a lot of Malayalam films. I was watching a lot more of Hindi films, having studied in Kendriya Vidyalaya, and the influence again was a lot of my friends from the north. So again, I watched Mohra and Hum Aapke Hain Kaun, and I grew up on that, and I really wanted the idea of wanting to be an actress was all the glam and the gorgeousness around it. But once I joined the film industry and was in Notebook, after I did Notebook, that I really started studying what the history of Malayalam cinema was like. So then thankfully, because of the writers of Notebook, Bobby and Sanjay, they were like this treasure cove of all films possible. So I used to take VCDs and DVDs from them and sit and watch films. So I think at that point is when a shift happened for me in terms of influence as an actor.
You were saying Doordarshan. I remember in Doordarshan, for us Bombay people, we used to have to rent out VHS tapes of Malayalam movies to go watch the new Malayalam movies. But on Doordarshan, they used to show only this, what they call award padam. Award padam maatrame Doordarshan veru. We used to not get to watch the commercial Malayalam films. So when we were growing up, that was the thing. But anyway, coming to Anjali, please.
Grew up abroad, and for us, sort of, Malayalam cinema was this big connect to our culture. And typically, same thing, you would wait for the VHS with the Arabic subtitles across to watch. And any film, I think, frankly, at
Thompson tapes, right?
Yes, Thompson, Afar, whatever it was, any film which came out that time, at that point, it was this celebration to really watch it. And for me, Padmarajan sir remains sort of the eternal inspiration. I adore his cinema. And then, of course, Mani sir. And I think there are many filmmakers who, we've grown up watching, but I think the stories are what have really connected me to cinema. So yeah, those are the names I would say.
I grew up in the 80s. I'm a little older that way. Adul Gopalakrishnan on one side, Arvind on one side, KG George on other side. Then Srinivasan actively being there, and Satya Adhikar being there, Priyadarshan being there. I mean, very vibrant period. I grew up on all those movies. I mean, a lot of the writers like Padmarajan, I read him as much as I watched him. So all of them have had huge influence.
In fact, my first meeting with Sanu, where I went to meet him to talk about my film, we ended up chatting about Padmarajan for about 2 to 3 hours. Then we forgot about discussing the film that we supposed to be talking about. Coming to Don.
When I grew up as a child, it was not really any filmmaker that inspired me. At that time, cinema meant all actors, and I grew up watching Mohandas and Mammootty like any other child of my age at that time. But later, when I started seriously thinking about films, the concept of film itself had changed a lot, and I started looking at other filmmakers all over the world and what they were doing differently and how they were doing things differently. And there were a handful of filmmakers that I really respected and whose styles I admired. So they keep on changing. So right now, these days, but some constants are there, like Bresson. Bresson is someone whom I can never stop admiring, I guess.
Aashiq sir?
I think it's Padmarajan with Desharanakali Karayarilla or Innale. Innale was a real wonder for me, actually. And not only from Malayalam, I got wondered watching Alaipaide. I think both these filmmakers, with their particular kind of filmmaking, influenced me a lot.
Roshan?
Okay. When I was a child, I just sort of watched the films that my family would watch. Obviously, there's only one TV and all. So this was really popular Malayalam cinema, popular Hollywood films and all that. But out of those, the ones that I still rewatch, I think, would be movies like Spadigam, Moonam Vakam, say Godfather, Sound of Music. All of these were favorites then also and are still favorites.
My dad was a huge Kamal Hassan fan. So he made it a point that I watch all his films when I was really young. I'm a dancer, so I was kind of always fascinated by Shobana and her roles. But I think later on, I kind of discovered Urvashi, and I was stuck there for the longest time, and I still am. I'm a huge, huge fan. But other than that, for me, just like Don was saying, it was all about actors. And until I came into the industry and I kind of understood the process, I didn't know anyone. Like, I didn't even know what a director did on set, or, that they called the shots. It was quite a surprise for me once I got into the industry and I understood the process and what really happens behind the camera. So today, I'm a changed person, an artist. But back then, it was just about the actors that you see on the big screen. And I think Urvashi has a lasting impression on me.
Okay, Narayanan, Kamal Hassan sir, അവരുടെ സിനിമകളൊക്കെ തന്നെയാണ്. പിന്നെ നമ്മുടെ മലയാളത്തിലെ KG George sir,
any particular actor you thought like like I would want to be like this actor? Anyone like strongly impacted you? Anyone like that?
ഞാൻ അത് പറഞ്ഞ പേഴ്സണലി കാണുമ്പോൾ പറയാം, പക്ഷെ ഇവിടെ പറഞ്ഞ ഞാൻ അഹങ്കാരമായിട്ട് തോന്നി. നമ്മുടെ നമ്മുടെ മലയാളത്തിലെ വലിയ നടന്മാരെ മാത്രമേ ഞാൻ കണ്ടിട്ടുള്ളൂ, അവരുടെ സിനിമകൾ കണ്ടാണ് വളർന്നത്. അപ്പോ അത് ചെറിയ രീതിയിലൊന്നുമല്ല, അവരെന്റെ ജീവിതത്തിന്റെ ഭാഗമായിട്ട് മാറുകയാണ് ചെയ്തത് അവരെല്ലാവരും. അതുകൊണ്ട് തന്നെ എനിക്ക് അവരൊക്കെ കാണുമ്പോഴും സിനിമയിൽ കാണുമ്പോഴും പേഴ്സണലി കാണുമ്പോഴൊക്കെ വേറൊരു മൂഡാണ്. അങ്ങനെയാണ് ഞാൻ വളർന്നത്. എന്റെ ചെറുപ്പം മുതൽ സിനിമ തന്നെയായിരുന്നു, ഇവരുടെ സിനിമകൾ തന്നെയായിരുന്നു. അതെല്ലാം കൊമേഴ്ഷ്യൽ പടങ്ങൾ തന്നെയായിരുന്നു. പിന്നീടാണ് നമ്മള് ഇരകളും അങ്ങനെയുള്ള നമ്മൾ ഡിസ്കസ് ചെയ്ത സിനിമകളൊക്കെ കണ്ടിട്ടുള്ളത്. ആദ്യം നമ്മള് നാടുവാഴികളും ഇടിപ്പടങ്ങളെല്ലാം 20ാം നൂറ്റാണ്ടും അതൊക്കെ തന്നെയായിരുന്നു നമ്മുടെ രസം. എന്റെ രസം അതൊക്കെ തന്നെയായിരുന്നു.
എല്ലാം പറഞ്ഞു ബിജോയ്. I grew up in Trivandrum, so Trivandrum അങ്ങനത്തെ ഒരു സ്ഥലമല്ല. Like it is more like watching films through any kind of film festival. Like always some film festival is there. So I still remember watching Perivadi Ambalam on big screen.
Wow.
That is a big opportunity. It was a festival by Chalachitra. I was very young. I didn't understand much. But later then I read the book. Then only I realized, okay, this guy is a legend. So now even I'm reading all his screenplays. He's a great. I think he's the ever greatest visual narrator which Malayalam cinema has ever witnessed. So we are still learning from Patmarajan. The way he writes, it's apart from the way he writes for a fiction. Like his language entirely shifts from fiction to a screenplay. So that is the biggest advantage he had. Then apparently when we all move into film schools, then all of a sudden this shifting happens now. So then it was like bicycle thieves, Disika films, then Kostagara was actually. Then after watching Izad and all, then I realized, okay, this man is another league. So let's still he's my hero till now. Yeah.
Actually, we can do an entire session only on Padmarajan films.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we should organize that if possible. I know I can talk about Padmarajan for hours, and I'm sure each one of you can too. So anyway, Geetu ma'am.
I grew up abroad, so most of my formative years was in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. And so I was just thinking about, I don't know about the influence, but the whole idea, the concept of binge watching, like, enjoying a cinema and wanting to keep, that understanding the flavor of, oh, you feel good while watching, is the 80s Tamil films that were available in Malaysia. So I still remember actor Ramachandran, Vadivel and Sendil. They have greatly influenced me. And I don't know how to say this because this is my oldest memory of binge watching for 3-4 years. And I remember every time I used to come back from school, there's an afternoon slot from 2 to 4 that these films were played. And they were it was a big hook for me. Like I used to, it's not that I followed Tamil at that time, but I picked up Tamil while watching it. They were hilarious. They had stories, subplots, characters, drama. And this is something, and my mom just didn't understand. She said, why are you watching Tamil films? Like, what is this? And then we used to, and they used to drive every weekend very far away to pick up these Thompson or whatever, this VHS cassettes for Malayalam films. And at that time, I used to insist on watching actor Ramachandran's other films, which I couldn't see on television. So it was a big hook. And in fact, even now, like sometimes I go to YouTube and I check him out and what he looks like now and all the actors. Like that's my first love towards my first, and of course after that you come and then you come into cinema and then I came into Malayalam film in one of the worst periods, which is the 2000 as an actor. And then you're exposed to a lot of different types of cinema. And slowly you learn, you watch, you gather. I mean, I think K.G. George sir has been a huge influence for me. I think he's my favorite. I love his earlier films like Yavaniga, Mela, Adam Devaril, Mattural. I love these films of his. And I feel the politics in his. Yeah. And I feel they just, and of course, Panjavadi Palam. Like, I love those films. Yeah, I love it. So, I mean, those are the stuff that influenced me, and after a point, you were exposed to world cinema, and then you want to watch more and more. And of course, apart from the usual classics, I really like Jerzy Menzel. And the reason I like him is because he doesn't have a fixed style. Because if you see a Capricious Summer, which is a slapstick kind of a comedy, at the same time he did Closely Guarded Train, and that's by far the finest cinema that I have seen. So he's like a mixed bag, and he's just so experimental with what he does. He doesn't have a particular style, and I love his characters, like how he's etched out. But then these names, they keep developing. Like I get a lot of inspiration from the filmmakers now. Like when I see some really cool work, like I get excited. Like wow, like they're doing different stuff. So that's good. But my heart belongs to Senthil and Vadivelu and actor Ramachandran. Like I think my roots are that. So.
I have this very vivid memory of watching Kutti Chatan and being mind blown by it. And I don't know, that made me, I was like so surprised to see something that, something so unfamiliar, but still so many connect to it. And growing up, actually, I had inspiration right at home. So my dad's a writer, so I used to go with him to the set and see all what is happening behind it. I had no clue what I was seeing. I had no idea. I couldn't understand most of the part, but I remember being so spellbound by the whole process of it, and always wanted to know more about it. So I used to sit with my dad when he writes, but he used to always shush me off. But I used to ask him questions on why are you writing like this on 100 and 200, 300 pages of scripts and everything.
Any films that you remember going to?
Yes, actually, I remember all of it very clearly, because that was my favorite part growing up. Because I used to literally take leave from school to just go to the set. From Kalyanaraman to Chanduvattu, all these. I was very small, but I remember the loudness of the set and how lively people were, and even the dance sequences that you see in films and how they rehearse it. And it was magical for me growing up. And more than my dad, actually, my mother's a big film buff. She watches everything from Malayalam to Marathi to Tamil to English. So growing up, I've seen her watch a lot of English films. She might not understand the whole of the film, but she would enjoy it so much. So I think that's the power of film. Like, you connect to it in a way, and that has always inspired me so much.
Jio baby, sir, any particular influences and any particular actors that had a great impact on your work?
And എയ്ത്തിലെ മറ്റേ പഠിക്കുമ്പോഴാണ് പത്തേർ പാഞ്ചാലി കാണുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ എൻ്റെ ഫാദർ കൊണ്ട് കാണിച്ച ഈ സിനിമ കാണണം, ഭയങ്കര നല്ല സിനിമയാണെന്നൊക്കെ പറഞ്ഞു. VHS കാണുന്നത് എനിക്ക് ഈ സിനിമ ഒട്ടും ഇഷ്ടപ്പെടുന്നില്ല. ഇതാണോ ഇന്ത്യയിൽ ഏറ്റവും കൊട്ടിഘോഷിച്ച സിനിമ എന്നുള്ള രീതിയിൽ നമ്മുടെ അന്നത്തെ പ്രായത്തിൽ അങ്ങനെ പറയുകയും, ഒരു 2-3 വർഷങ്ങൾക്ക് ശേഷം എനിക്കൊന്ന് പ്രീ ഡിഗ്രി പഠിക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത് വീണ്ടും പത്തേർ പാഞ്ചാലി കാണുകയും ഞെട്ടിപ്പോവുകയും ചെയ്തു. അപ്പോ ഫാദറാണ് എനിക്ക് ഓരോ പടങ്ങൾ സജസ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. അതിനുശേഷം ഞാൻ ഈ എലിപ്പത്തായം കാണുന്നു. വീണ്ടും വേറൊരു തരത്തിലോട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ഫിലിം രീതിയിലിട്ട് നമുക്കൊരു ചേഞ്ച് ആയിരുന്നു ആ പത്തേർ പാഞ്ചാലി. പിന്നെ എലിപ്പത്തായം കാണുന്നു. പിന്നെ അങ്ങനത്തെ സിനിമകളോട് ഇഷ്ടം തോന്നി. അതിന് മുന്നേ വരെ എല്ലാവരും പറഞ്ഞ പോലെ തന്നെ നമ്മൾ മോഹൻലാൽ, മമ്മൂട്ടി അല്ലെങ്കിൽ കമലഹാസൻ, മണിരത്നം ഒക്കെ ഫേവറേറ്റ് ഡയറക്ടർ ആയിരുന്നു ആ സമയത്ത്. പിന്നെ അതിനൊരു മാറ്റം ഉണ്ടായിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഇപ്പോ എന്താ പറയാ, KG ജോർജും എല്ലാവരും പറഞ്ഞ അതേ പേരുകളൊക്കെ ഉള്ളൂ പറയാം, വേറെ പേരുകളൊന്നും ഇല്ല.
I wanted to know that we talk about pan-India, we use terms like regional. What do these terms mean to you, and what is the ambition? Like, what is the ambition when you start to work in a certain industry? Does it naturally, can it be assumed that you would like to work across industries? Do you work in Malayalam cinema and wish that you were working in another industry as well and you have that kind of reach? I would like to understand that. I feel Hindi is regional as well if it's language oriented. So what is regional based on?
The criteria of this regional this thing is the language. So nowadays I think with the subtitle we are communicating to so much of other people. So I think by the time it will get better, every film will be subtitled for sure, not only in English, I believe. We have a tradition of doing subtitles in Arabic when it was releasing overseas. I think every production company will be serious from now, at least, to make sure that a film is subtitled. I think all our releases are already subtitled, but the issue comes when we go to the outside Kerala theaters. The subtitle files and the video files are playing separately. So sometimes the theaters won't play the subtitle file. So there is a technical issue there. Otherwise, I think all the films are I think everyone is doing the subtitles.
I also feel that somewhere, and it's got nothing to do with insularity. I feel that does it speak to what the ambition is? Like, making that kind of a thing, accessible across the board. Is there a language? Is there a politics of language that exists within the landscape as well?
Yes, for sure. I think for me, language is a big barrier because I understand Malayalam the most. So I'm very comfortable with Malayalam and my local surroundings. So I don't know personally. It's my personal opinion. I don't know how will I go and fit into another industry where people are from different work cultures. So there is a problem, especially from South. Again, we have a tradition, like we are coming from a smaller industry. So, but I think by now, since it's the scenario has changed, I think filmmakers will take chances and go try. Yeah.
Anjali, what are your views on that?
I was saying I have a slightly diverse view on that because, frankly, for me, Malayalam is not the most comfortable language to work in. But I have always looked to it as something that I want to learn and I want to get better at. So it was a choice to want to make a Malayalam film. It would have been much easier to do a film in Hindi or English or all of those things, But I think making a film in Malayalam offers you an opportunity to make a rooted narrative, something which is rooted to a specific culture. And more than anything, it gives you access to an audience with a very great sensibility. See, when we talk about, a certain industry, it is not just about the language. It is also about the sensibility of this audience. Now, the filmmakers, you heard everybody. If you speak to a cross-section of the audience, possibly you will come across the very same names as well. So when you have a film showing at the Film Festival of Kerala, it's very different from many other festivals because of the audience. And it's that audience that I'm very keen to connect with. And therefore, I think that is a wonderful thing to do. What I have a slight problem with is when people assume that, making a film which is of a regional language is the first step and everybody wants to move on to another step, which is a mainstream Hindi film. I'm so sorry, but I don't really see that as a step up. Completely different world. It's a different ecosystem. And people who want to should. People who don't want to should not do that. Because it's two completely different worlds. I have a problem with that kind of thought. And frankly speaking, I think the whole OTT wave has really, it's become a great leveler. Because people are responding to content, people are responding to characters. It's no longer about.
Anjali, I just want to. I'm sorry to interrupt, but just want to say one thing. I have made Hindi films here, and I'm trying to step up to make a Malayalam film. I'm desperately trying to step up.
I wanted to say that Bejoy's been wanting to do that for a long time.
Desperate.
I wanted to ask Bejoy.
Malayalam is there. I'm desperately trying to climb up the Malayalam wave.
I know. I wanted to ask Bejoy this question about when are you making a Malayalam film? Because you've done your.
Aring Kashan.
I'll butt in for a second.
I come here to meet Aashiq for that only.
Direct line. So, Sanu, sorry, you were saying something?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Anjali on having the privilege to be able to talk to the Malayali audience. I think it's really big. Bejoy must be knowing. I've always told you the stories which I want to tell are probably things which can be only told in Malayalam, because there's an audience there which is receptive to a lot more. It has got a tradition of nicer, more interesting movies over the years. And that's a privilege. I completely agree with what you said.
And I would also say that, when one is making a film for a mainstream audience, which the whole nation is supposed to watch, frankly, the South and the East of our country still don't speak Hindi like everybody thinks. Okay? But still, a lot of people are used to watching Hindi mainstream cinema because that is the one which has the maximum distribution, and for all other reasons as well.
And there's a certain amount of Hindi penetrating in also with the migrant labor situation and people moving in and out.
It is a huge challenge to make those films as well. It's not like that's easy, because you're taking a story and you're trying to make it relevant to a much wider audience, which means that you have to sort of give it to them in an accessible form, and that is not an easy thing to do. So to just jump from a very culturally rooted narrative to be able to jump and access a much wider audience is a huge challenge in itself. So I think it's important to take cognizance of that. But when you're making a film for a particular language, for a particular culture, and this culture is not limited to from Kasaragod to Trivandrum, it is not that.
It has got its variations.
Given that we are Malayalis, and given that we are people who love to travel, and that you'll find a Malayali on the moon also, they say. So these films also travel. These stories also travel. So that gives us, like Geetu was talking about, being in Malaysia and watching Tamil cinema. If you're in other parts of the world, you'll be watching Malayalam cinema. So there are so many people who are of different cultures who have been watching this. I'm so glad that the people, who have not been able to see Malayalam cinema in India are finally getting to see it now. And that making that a level playing field was much needed, and I think we've got it. So that's wonderful as far as I'm concerned. And I think the opportunity to make a film in Malayalam is a wonderful opportunity for me.
I want to continue with that note, actually, because this is my biggest fear. I've done a short film. My first film was in Malayalam. It's a short fiction film called Kelkunnundo. After that, I've not really done a Malayalam film because Muton is the local dialect in Lakshadweep and it's in Hindi. And I kept asking myself that why can't I find a story? Why can't I arrive at something to, do it here? And this is when the actual stark reality hit me, that because I don't have the roots here, like I didn't grow up here. I've only read translated works. My Malayalam, literature knowledge is so poor that it scares me as a filmmaker. And it scares me, the fact that, when I'm sitting in conversations and people talk about these books, and I go and search for these books, but it's so much which is lost in translation to understand the poet or the author. And I feel so handicapped. And I feel that I'm never, when I watch Malayalam films, and I thoroughly enjoy some of them, are so beautiful and so rooted. And I feel like, oh God, I need to find my own style or my own storytelling, because I can never do that. I enjoy these films, but I know that I'm also learning. It's my process of discovering, my expression. But I realize that this is like a big weakness. So I'm playing on my strengths to just tell stories the way, I want to tell it and find my audience in there. So coming back to this pan-India cinema, like it's really, I think there's a misconception, like people think that it's the scale or it's, cinema is just so, we're crossing borders now. It's all very liquid between us, that people are aware of all types of cinema, especially with the OTT, which has happened, that people are, they're watching good content. They're not watching, so even Mahesh's film, See You Soon, which has come out, or the recent Joju, they are huge successes and they are pan-India. It's not just the Bahubalis of the world which are pan-India. These movies, which people are speaking about all over India, they're pan-India, So you're talking about cinema, which is traveling all over, and and language is never a barrier, because cinematic, the cinema itself, it's what grips people.
That's the point. Like, whatever I am feeling is whenever I get a script from Hindi, I can tell you, like, right after takeoff, like, I'm feeling it very uncomfortable working. Like, Malayalam is the only place where we get this immense kind of freedom in working with the content, because, the producer. First of all, there are no studio producers working here. Let me admit the point straight away, because there are no focus groups. there are not too many people who are getting into getting reviews on feedbacks and saying that okay, this is what not working here, this is not working. So it is not like that. This works purely on trust. So as Geetu mentioned, like when we try to attempt see you soon, I only have to convince Fahad. That's it, man. So he's a friend. That's it. That's the only point. And later, when some of the buyers came into our thing, some of the streaming people, and they wanted to see the entire film, and they were asking about the COP and also. We said no, there is no. You can't watch the film and all. Like you better take it or no. Leave it. We'll show you a trailer. That's it. That's the point. That's a trust we have to keep. So from the initial discussions during that period, what I felt is, they were like considering Malayalam cinema as an industry where they were giving statistics. I'm not specifically mentioning about any particular OTT platform providers, but they're saying only 8% of the India's total streaming population are witnessing Malayalam cinema. So then everything got broken with Jio's film. So you should understand that the server of knee stream. I heard the server of knee stream got crashed 6 or 7 times. So it had a bandwidth of almost like 1 lakh or 1.5 lakh view bandwidth. You should understand that it is not a simple bandwidth. Okay. So, so that is a thing. So that is pan India. So that is the real thing. So now we are getting good kind of freedom, in terms of content. There are no kind of restrictions here. We can choose. At any point of my production stage, I can go and ask any of my friends, to come and help with making this film, or my actor friends, or my technical, like anybody, or the studio distributor, the regular distributors and all. So there has been an open fight which started in the initial period of the pandemic that theaters are not going to survive. Let's see, definitely theaters are going to survive. This is the basic thing. When television came up, people started commenting that okay, now it's television era. It's not that. So I'm comfortable making films in Malayalam, and I'm so happy that I belong to this industry. Yeah.
How do the actors feel? I know Roshan is working in the industry in the north. Parvathy's worked there. Bejoy, of course, directs there. Geetu's worked in the north. How's your experience been? How is it different from what you experience in the Malayalam industry?
So one thing I've repeated over and over again every time this question has been asked is because I worked with AK there. It wasn't all that different from a Malayalam film setup. The feeling I got, and I don't think it's a conventional Bollywood setup either. How AK works, so I might not be the best judge of this. I might not be in a great position to answer this. But after thinking for a bit, what I've realized is when I first started acting, I was doing theater in Chennai, and I was doing a few ads here and there. Then I moved to Bombay. I was doing theater in Bombay. I was doing ads and music videos and web series and whatever on the side. Then I came to Kerala purely because I got some work here, got some acting work here. So somewhere in between, jumping between these places, for me, these boundaries were never formed at all. For me, I just wanted to do work as an actor and find work from wherever I could fit in. So I knew Malayalam, I knew a little bit of Tamil, I knew Hindi. And wherever there was a character for me to play, which was offered to me, I would jump at it. So these boundaries weren't defined as much. And over working in theater and in films, I've also realized that the more specific you get, the more universal your film becomes or your play becomes. So I've had experiences where, say, I'm watching an Iranian film without at that point in my life having any awareness about the political context of Iran. And I'm learning from the film. I'm watching a film that Rajiv has done in, oh shit, no names. I'm watching a Malayalam film and I'm learning something about my homeland from that film, be it like political or cultural, whatever. I'm learning from. So in a way, whatever these films chronicle, and that when you think about it later, it puts a lot of responsibility on you also as what you make and put out there. But for me, I was willing to accept anything a film was putting across to me genuinely, and if it was detailed well enough and communicated effectively and convincingly, I am learning about that particular context and that particular culture in that part of the world through the film. And as long as I can emotionally connect to the film, I'm perfectly okay going on that journey. So these boundaries itself didn't exist as much as you would think they did.
You're working with Alia next, right?
Yeah, so I'm guessing that's going to be a completely different experience. And like right from when we started the prep work for it, it's felt so different from anything I've done in Malayalam so far. And after I started working in Malayalam films also, not when I did all of my schooling here, not when I visited when I was in Bombay or Chennai, it's after I started working in Malayalam films and started to get opportunities to work with people whose work I really respect and started having great experiences making films, is when I felt like, okay, this place is home. This is where I want to be. Earlier, somebody mentioned this is the I think Anjali ma'am said this is the audience that I want to tell my stories to. So that sort of feeling is what sort of rooted me here. I didn't get any of that when we started prep for Darling. So it is feeling like something entirely different. And then now COVID has happened. So all of that excessive planning has just imploded. And now we're pretty much working the way a Malayalam film is working. Oh, okay, you're coming on this particular day, you can travel, cool. You'll we'll try and fix something. So it's a mishmash of everything right now. And until that experience is done, I don't know what I'll be able to tell you about.
We'll chat about it after you're done with Darlings. But
Yeah.
Rima, what about you?
I think as a performer, because we are dealing with emotions, basic human emotions. Like if you take Sandoshathinte Onnam Rahasyam done by Dawn, it's set inside a car. Okay, and anybody who's been in love and who's been in a relationship will relate to what's happening inside that car. But then not all films are like that. They'll have another background. They'll be set in a particular milieu. But for a performer, I think it's very interesting for us to kind of dig into it and perform. But looking at it as a creator, I think it's very, very different. Like how we've seen all the directors here. I think you go to you want to talk about where you come from, what your experiences are. And it's closer to your your stories are definitely going to be closer to who you are and what kind of stories you want to tell, and those stories are most definitely going to be from your life and your experiences and what you think needs to be told. But again, looking at it as a producer, like when Virus released on OTT platform, I remember people from all over India, my friends who were settled in Delhi to Bangalore to Bombay, to everybody reaching out and talking about the film and how it has helped them inform themselves. And so it feels good when people from all over are suddenly watching it, going through the film, watching the subtitles and understanding the film. And it was set in Calicut, and they asked me more questions about what really happened, and so they did connect about something that happened here. And from a very producer perspective, I think it feels great when people from all over watch your film, and when that there's a huge audience for what you've created, it feels great. But I guess from a director point of view, like they were all saying, it's a very different story, and I'm just getting there, so I wouldn't know.
I try to follow. Usually it's easier for me when there is a single voice to follow. Most of the time it's my directors, and if it's a director, it's the writer also, and well and good. If it's the writer and director both speaking to me, then I kind of put my blinkers on, and that's just that. But my experience in working in Kareeb single in Hindi in the Hindi cinema was a little different. The entire structure of making film on set is very different. Let's say the timings and logistics of things are very different than in Malayalam cinema, how it's done here. More often than not, it's because of how much budget we have and how much budget people in Hindi cinema have. But apart from that, what I found a little uncomfortable was how much of discussion within the producers and the director and actors were all put in a room together where the perception of the character was discussed much in detail with the actors. And for me, I don't know what the other actors felt like. But for me, it was like, I wish there was less noise from that side. I wish I could just focus on the performance without wondering and worrying. That's not my job at all. Like, if it can be streamlined directly to me through the director after whatever discussion needs to be done through the focus group discussion and, you know, all of that, it would have been easier for me. Otherwise, I don't know where, at what level of my thinking, my processing, it gets affected, the perception of audience or how this character needs to be perceived. That's a form of very an unhealthy control for me. The same thing happened in Marian also. That's a Tamil film that I had done. For me, it was Bharat Bala, Dhanush, A.R. Rahman. These, you know, stalwarts are coming together and making a film. And for me, it was all about just sort of zoning out every other noise and focusing on what we can create together. And all I kept seeing was the script being changed over and over, like I think 10 different drafts after I said yes to the film, to inject comedy into it, because what if it becomes too serious? So it became this, I don't know, it became like the project was being cut up, and I constantly saw my directors having to choose, okay, I need to also make sure that the film, this trust that Mahesh was talking about, I felt like that kept weaning off and on, and they were struggling with that, and I could see that. And then eventually, in one way or the other, obviously what ends up on screen, we can't put a subtitle that, that day we had a focus group discussion, so the scene got affected. We can't do that. So the audience will take what they have to take. But at the end of the day, it leaves a bad taste in terms of the fact that did we at some point lose the integrity, the dignity to what we started with the trust with which, the vision with which we started. So I was very much affected as an artist during those projects. But then again, it was easier for me, after I communicated that with my director, it was easier for me to just focus on one voice. That's the affectation that I feel. And I also feel like there is a way that we work here. There is a camaraderie and trust in which we work here. I think there is a lot of planning and reach that can be integrated to how we work, instead of completely disrupting what is so normal and usual for us. I think that is achievable with a lot of, but the intimidation of numbers and, reach, and that cannot be disrupting the vision and from the place we start with. I think that's a little, that can be unhealthy.
You do one film in the North, and then you are slotted probably for the next 10 years of your life. You're trying to just break out of that mold. So how is it navigating that here in the Malayalam film industry, where are people taking more chances? Are they more experimental with casting? How does the casting happen? Do you have casting agents? How does it work?
It's my own decision, and I just want to enjoy work on under great directors. That's all.
What excites you? Is it the filmmaker? Is it the story? Is the character? Like, what is the first thing that you look at?
Only director. Yeah. ഒരു ആക്ടറെ ഞാൻ രാജീവ് രവിയുടെ കൂടെ രാജീവന്റെ കൂടെ വർക്ക് ചെയ്തപ്പോൾ എനിക്ക് ഒട്ടും പരിചയമില്ലാത്തൊരു ക്യാരക്ടറാണ് ചെയ്തത്. പക്ഷെ അദ്ദേഹം എന്നെ അത് ചെയ്യിപ്പിച്ച ഒരു രീതി കണ്ടപ്പോഴാണ് എനിക്ക് മനസ്സിലായത് എനിക്കറിയാത്ത കുറെ കാര്യങ്ങളുണ്ട്, എനിക്കറിയാത്ത ഒരുപാട് എക്സ്പ്ലോർ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്ന ഒരുപാട് ഏരിയകളുണ്ട്. അത് ബിഗ് ഡയറക്ടേഴ്സിന് മാത്രമേ എനിക്ക് പറഞ്ഞുതരാൻ പറ്റത്തുള്ളൂ. അപ്പം എനിക്ക് വേറെ റീജിയണൽ ലാംഗ്വേജ് എന്നുള്ളതില്ല. ഐ എം ജസ്റ്റ് എൻജോയിങ് ഓൾ ലാംഗ്വേജസ്. തമിഴ്നാട്ടിൽ പോയാൽ മുരുകൻ ഇഡ്ഡലി കഴിക്കും, ഹൈദരാബാദിൽ പോയി കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ പാരഡൈസ് ബിരിയാണി കഴിക്കും, ബോംബെ പോയാൽ പാവഭാജി കഴിക്കും എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ പോലെ എല്ലാം നമ്മൾ എൻജോയിങ്. കൂടുതൽ ചിന്തിക്കുന്നൊന്നുമില്ല.
Is that the same for you, Anna, Roshan?
I think it's
Parvathy?
a decision that you make, that you want to do, what kind of roles you want to do. And I think some of the actors do have the blessing to choose. Some may not have that many options. So that is when the director or the whole set of casting people decide whether they can do it or not. So, and also, I think it's half of everything. Like, it's either a director deciding or an actor deciding that they want to do, or the audience willing to accept both sides of the decisions of the actor and the director and everything. So, because I think most of my colleagues, when we have this discussion, whether are you fixed on in doing just a lead, or is there, because when you're beginning, you have a lot of doubts, and there's only so much people can advise you on. If you take this is going to be the next 3 years for you, or something like that. So I think we have to make a conscious decision whether we want to do that, and see ahead what will be next. And it's sort of a gamble, I feel. But everything boils down to the fact that we love cinema, and we want to create something that can give us an experience to see a bigger side of cinema, and to grow into different characters, and meet new directors, meet new artists. For me, I love the idea of working with senior artists, because there is so much to learn, and I do not mind being in the small corner of the screen as long as I can see how they're working, and it's always been amazing for me like that. And I think Kumbalangi was something that amazed me like that, because I saw brilliant actors in front of me doing brilliant things, and that's been a masterclass for me. And so I think from there itself, I've decided that I cannot restrict myself into being just the leading character or anything. So I think it's like that for me.
When I started exploring acting, it was through theatre. And with theatre, it's always been a space where I don't think it has ever crossed my mind whether I'm playing the lead or I'm on stage for 2 scenes. It's not something that has ever crossed. And I think that's continuing. It's never really been about the screen time or from the films that I think in the beginning when I was starting out, there was a lot of concern, or like people who tell me, you shouldn't be taking up such small things, because then you won't be able to find or you won't be able to find things that your space, or slightly larger prominent space. But I think that's great in a place like in the Malayalam industry. I think that's really cool, because we still it is heroine centric still, I think, but the characters that are there, or there is writing that sort of helps these characters also to be in prominence. So I feel like being able to play, a film like Virus, everyone's on screen for like 5 minutes, but you all, you're coming for 5 minutes, but what this girl or that boy's whole story is or life is. And I think for me, it's mostly just been about, when I'm coming for those 2 scenes, am I excited about it? Do I have enough work to do for those 2 scenes? So I've really not thought so much about, how big or character, or I think I look at character, lead actor, all of it, for me, it looks the same. From the work I do looks the same.
So frankly, in the North, what tends to happen is that it's the actors who feel that they're not, like the casting agents or the directors or the people who are taking these decisions are the ones who are not taking that leap, or who are not imagining, the crop of the actors that are there in different roles, and they're getting slotted because it's just lazy casting.
I want to just talk about one part of it, which is, throughout the last 3-4 decades in Malayalam cinema also, the kind of bank of actors they were there, like Darshana just said, even in the smaller parts, some actors used to leave such a strong impact, and we used to look. So it's, when we used to search for movies, look for movies, it's not like we used to look for only the star-driven films. All those actors also used to make a solid impact. I'm talking about Oduvil Unnikrishnan, K.P.C. Lalita, Sumari. In a sense, these were actors that we all used to love and look up to so much, and they were not the leads. They were all playing character parts, and some films they had much prominent parts, some films they had smaller parts, but they all left a solid impact. And I think that's been there in the grain of Malayalam films anyways.
We've had a very strong ensemble culture.
Yeah.
Ensemble culture, exactly. I think you nailed that.
The idea that all of these tiny characters are also real people. So be it, all the names that Bejoy mentioned, I still miss watching Shankaradi on screen, Jagati Srikumar on screen. These are people who have done hundreds of films, tiny roles, but there's nobody to replace them. So
I know so many films where Oduvil Unnikrishnan came for like 1 or 2 scenes, but it used to leave such a strong impact, right? like you
And
remember those scenes. They were
also the trust when Darshana and everybody are talking about that they don't mind if it's a smaller role, when that is the trust they have in the writer and the director to be able to glean what is best. And also because it's in the sort of indie space, there is the flexibility for the writer or the director to even make this a little more or make this a little less according to how the actor is responding to it. So all of that is a very beautiful organic process.
I also want to just take one small thing, what Joju sir said about filmmakers. I want to just talk about one example of Vijay Sethupathi, who I chatted with once because he was doing this big ensemble film with Mani sir for the first time, because he was working with Mani sir for the first time in Chekkachivandavanam. And we were all kind of surprised that he was taking on a role like that. He was not the main lead. He was playing one of the smaller character parts. And when I chatted with him, he told me that, just like what Joju just said, that I why I took on this role? I took on this role because later on in life, when I'm doing a film and I'm thinking of a scene, I'll have access to remembering what did Mani sir think of a scene when he was directing, because I would have had like a ringside view of what he did, and I can use that later on in my own films. So this is what he said. He said, that's the reason I'm doing this film. Not because the character is big or small. I'm doing it because I'll be able to get a ringside view of how this guy planned and directed a scene, and I can use that for my films later. So I just wanted to just recount that. That was his motivation to wanting to do a small character part in a film like that, in ensemble film.
When I look at the credits of the Malayalam films, at least I watch, I love the fact that, there are directors who are editing, there are big directors editing for their friends or just because they want to be part of that film. Sanu's short, Malik, Mahesh has edited Nayattu. I just want to know how it works. It's like if I was to just explain this a little bit in the context that I'm coming from, it's like Kabir Khan shooting Raju Hirani's film. So I just want to know how this works. Everyone is collaborating at this level with everybody in the industry. It's a very film school kind of engagement, not only from the acting aspect, but also the filmmaking of it. So
Mahesh and Sanu are just they're just two anomalies. They're just a bit too.
Also, Aashiq acts. Also, Aashiq's produced like almost everything that I spoke about. So I'm just saying, and I see thank yous. There are these slates that have everybody thanked. It's like a big happy family. I just look at the credits with a lot of wonder. I'm like, what's going on? What are they doing? We are not doing at all. So, Mahesh, you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So I can tell you an example right now. Like we are doing a film called Malayan Kunja, which I'm writing. So Sanu was supposed to shoot the film, but Sanu couldn't come. So I did so what happened is that right now I am shooting the film. Huh? So that is the situation. So Sanu told me like I'm not free. I'll be available only after my Telugu film. So okay, let's you can do it. You do the film, no problem. So it's that kind of vibe what is happening right now. So after the pandemic, Smriti, so what happened is that we started deciding we have to minimize the entire crew numbers. Okay, so we have to do multitasking. So that I learned from Sanu actually. So Sanu told me like this is the future. Like if there is an AC, if there is an assistant cinematographer, so he has to do the boom. So it is more like that. So he has to handle the boom, and if the boom man is slightly taller, actually he's fit enough to put a black tape on the ceiling and all. He's fine because he doesn't require a ladder at all. So it is more like a multitasking thing. So when I was doing it is more like that. So See You Soon was such kind of an exercise where 15-member crew. I was watching in a monitor. I was pulling focus also because there was no focus puller on a location. So it was more like that. So this is the kind of vibe which is the need of the hour. I think we need to do multitasking right now.
Mahesh, the one thing that from Tamil culture that has not seeped into Kerala thing is directors turning into actors. And I think seeing you, Aashiq and Sanu, I think you guys also should start becoming like
Aashiq is already in that.
I was already an actor already. He's been acting.
I tried to act, but Mahesh chopped it out.
Tried to act in the film.
That is not required actually. So there was I will tell you, there was Joju acted in my film Malik. So Joju was in UK. Joju, do you remember? So Joju UK lernu. So he was not willing to come. So, I thought of calling Aashiq for that role. Actually, I wanted Aashiq to play that role because Joju was not coming. Let's just start with Karthik's film.
One acting gig gone, Aashiq.
I missed it.
Guys, now that the OTT, like you said, that the OTT platforms have helped find you, new audiences in just the way that you make cinema. But are there challenges now with OTT as well?
Well, frankly, I don't have enough OTT experience to speak, but I did see a report today which says that 2021 is going to be more challenging than 2020 for cinema, because all the acquisitions of films which were made, they did not get the kind of views that were anticipated. So the OTT guys are also being very choosy in what they're picking up. And from experience of friends in the industry, I'm noticing that they're again going the way of the satellite channels, where it becomes very star-centric and certain filmmakers and all of that. So that does pose its challenges. Also, this is a climate when you don't really have much access to theaters. So there is an issue there. So yes, this year is definitely going to be challenging. But I think at the end, with content, that is the big strength that this industry has. And with all of them, the content has been consistent and fabulous. So, I'm not, very worried. Eventually, that is what will come on top.
Just wanted to get, some sort of a perspective from you in terms of, something that you feel needs to be changed, altered, or can become better when platforms are commissioning, work in other languages.
I think every company works on a certain kind of strategy. So they have they will be having some kind of plans. In my experience, I think Amazon Prime is doing a pretty good work. The point they are trusting few production houses and certain filmmakers. Exactly what Mahesh was saying. They are trusting some kind of people so that they are a decent kind of content. For example, Joju. So I think it depends on the strategy. What kind of strategy are they making? From our point of view, personally, I'm not bothered about the strategy right now. I am not trying to make films for them and their strategy. We are continuing the work, what we're doing from the years. So personally, I think if we continue doing that, we can survive.
Like my biggest worry is not this one. My biggest worry is that the pandemic is really triggering things a lot. At one stage there will be our cinema halls are going to be on a streaming platform. The DCP thing, I mean the digital cinema projectors, what we are seeing right now on cinema theaters are going to be replaced with huge giant LED walls. So then there will be one big giant corporate who's going to take up all this sector, saying that okay, we are going to stream films from now on your screens. So then there will be monopoly. So in that way, there will be as per how Aashiq mentioned it clearly, that we are all not making films for any providers right now, but we are making films for our own requirements. Like whatever story we need to tell. But there will be a point in the next future. That is the fear which I have because this problem I have already addressed before. This is because of the the 5G spectrum which India is going to come in. With that, everything is going to be super speed. Now the bandwidth what India is going to achieve. So at that point, somebody will say that one big corporate house will be saying that okay, we need only Bahubalis in theaters, and smaller films can be thrown on digital network. specifically for phone, like vertical format is going to be the next revolution. That's what I'm thinking about. More interactive kind of films and all. But still, still theaters will be there, but there will be a problem, where a lot of other content players are going to decide things on how the entertainment industry has to function. That is my biggest fear. Yeah.
ഞാൻ അതിന് ഒരു കൗണ്ടർ ആർഗ്യുമെന്റ് ആയിട്ട് കരുതണ്ട. ഞാൻ മലയാളത്തിൽ സംസാരിക്കട്ടോ. അതായത് എന്ന് വാക്സിനേഷൻ നടക്കുന്നോ ആൾക്കാർ തിരിച്ച് തിയേറ്ററിലേക്ക് വരും എന്നാണ് വിചാരിക്കുന്നത്. ഇപ്പൊ നമ്മൾ ഈ കാണുന്ന OTT-ക്കാര് മുഴുവൻ മലയാളം ഫിലിം ഇൻഡസ്ട്രിയെ ഇത്ര സീരിയസ് ആയിട്ട് കാണാൻ തുടങ്ങിയത് ഇവിടുത്തെ തിയേറ്ററുകളാണ് നമ്മൾ ആദ്യം സഹായിച്ചത്. തിയേറ്ററുകളിൽ ആള് വന്നു, ആ സിനിമകൾ ഓടി. ഈ തിയേറ്റേഴ്സിലാണ് ഇപ്പൊ ഞാൻ എന്റെ സിനിമ കളിക്കുന്നത് 18 തിയേറ്ററിലാണ്, ആദ്യത്തെ സോൾട്ട് ആൻഡ് പെപ്പർ കളിക്കുന്നത്. അപ്പൊ ഈ തിയേറ്റേഴ്സ് തിരിച്ചു വരുന്നതോടുകൂടി ഈ കാര്യങ്ങൾ റിവേഴ്സ് ആവുമെന്നാണ് എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നത്. കാരണം ഇപ്പോ പല രീതിയിലുള്ള പെനിട്രേഷൻ നടന്നു. കോർപ്പറേറ്റുകൾ ഇപ്പോഴല്ല, റിലയൻസ് കുറെ കാലം മുമ്പ്, ഇവര് തന്നെ ജിയോക്കാര് കുറെ കാലം മുമ്പ് ട്രൈ ചെയ്താണ് ഇത് നടന്നാണ്. അന്നും നമ്മളെല്ലാവരും ഭയങ്കര ഇൻസെക്യൂർ ആയി. പക്ഷെ നടന്നത് എന്താണ്, ആ കണ്ടന്റിലുള്ള ജഡ്ജ്മെന്റ് എന്താ പറയുന്നത്, ഒരു കോർപ്പറേറ്റ് ബുക്കിന്റെ ഇത് വെച്ചിട്ട്, ക്രൈറ്റീരിയ വെച്ചിട്ട് ഇതിനെ അളക്കാൻ പറ്റില്ലല്ലോ. ഇപ്പൊ നേരത്തെ മഹേഷ് പറഞ്ഞ ട്രസ്റ്റ് തന്നെയാണ് ഇതിനകത്ത് വർക്കാവുന്നതെന്നാണ് നമുക്ക് മനസ്സിലായിട്ടുള്ളത്. ഒരു സ്റ്റുഡിയോ കൾച്ചർ ഇവിടെ ഇല്ല. അപ്പോ എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നത് വൺസ് തിയേറ്റേഴ്സ് തിരിച്ചു വന്നാൽ, വാക്സിനേഷന് ശേഷം എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു ഐ തിങ്ക് ഇറ്റ് വിൽ ഹാപ്പൻ. വൺസ് ദ വാക്സിനേഷൻ ഈസ് ഡൺ, പീപ്പിൾ ആർ ഗോയിങ് ടു കം ബാക്ക് ടു തിയേറ്റേഴ്സ് എന്ന് തന്നെയാണ് ഞാൻ വിശ്വസിക്കുന്നത്. കോർപ്പറേറ്റുകൾക്ക് എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നത് എന്തെങ്കിലും 1-2 സിനിമകൾ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്നല്ലാതെ അവരിലേക്കൊരു മുഴുവൻ കൺട്രോൾ ഇനി തിരിച്ചു പോകുമെന്ന് എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നില്ല. കാരണം അത് ജനങ്ങൾ സമ്മതിക്കുന്നതല്ല. നമ്മൾ കുറെ കൂടെ കേരളം ആയതുകൊണ്ട് അങ്ങനെ കുറച്ചുകൂടെ ഇൻഡിപെൻഡന്റ് സ്വഭാവമുള്ള സിനിമകൾ ഇവിടെ വേണമെന്ന് ഇവിടുത്തെ ഓഡിയൻസ് ആഗ്രഹിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. ഇപ്പൊ ഇത്രയും ഇൻഡസ്ട്രിക്ക് ഡൈവേഴ്സിറ്റി ഒക്കെ ഇപ്പൊ വരുന്നത് ഇവിടുത്തെ ഓഡിയൻസ് കാരണമാണ്. നമുക്ക് ധൈര്യമാണ്. ഇപ്പൊ ഈ കംഫർട്ടബിൾ എന്ന് പറയുന്ന പോലത്തെ ഒരു ധൈര്യം വരുന്നുണ്ട്. നമുക്കൊരു കോൺഫിഡൻസ് ഉണ്ട് ഇവിടുത്തെ ഓഡിയൻസിൽ, നമുക്ക് ചെയ്തു നോക്കാം. അപ്പൊ അവര് തന്നെ നമ്മളെ രക്ഷിക്കും.
Film festivals across India, the 2 or 3 film festivals that exist, how can they be useful? Do you find those, I mean, I am asking honestly, like, do you even find those places of value?
I would sidestep a bit. I mean, going back into some of the stuff which we talked about earlier. I think there is also scope for some kind of a multilingual existence, which is probably becoming possible. There are stories which can be set beyond state borders. We have like a lot of stories which need to be told about. When the pandemic happened, you kind of looked at the migrant realities and how the demography of this nation is kind of one side of the country is worker to the other side. Biharis are working in Punjab, and Eastern Indians are working in Kerala, and Malayalis are working as laborers in the Gulf. And there's a lot of other stuff which you need to tell stories from. It probably beyond conventional accepted templates of stories. There are more stories emerging probably. OTT platforms will kind of aid that kind of storytelling at some stage, I hope. I'm talking about other kinds of market possibilities existing. I mean, I just wanted to sidestep about it and kind of talk about it for a minute.
But you're a first-time filmmaker. You just made a film. But going forward, are you personally, like Sanu, you as a director, Don, Jio, are you all looking at OTT as a different avenue to explore further to make films, or are you still going to go back to are you still going to continue making the films that you want to make, or are you looking at it as a very tangible opportunity?
I'm hopeful in some areas because I have a certain kind of a strange existence. I'm like totally local. I've been here for like 22 years, eating, breathing, reading, watching Malayalam completely. And then I have like a 26 years, which is, kind of in metros and, across countries. And so, there are people who are in this kind of reality, people who understand this kind of reality. With urbanization going up, there is also like a, culture of people who are kind of used to other voices. I'm saying probably there are other avenues emerging, and probably OTT platforms will help bring that kind of a space back into storytelling. I'm saying I'm looking at it as a possibility that could work out well. Yeah.
Don, you and Gio sir, are you also looking at that? Are you looking at OTT as a very tangible place to kind of explore your storytelling?
Yeah, coming back to the original question that Smriti asked, I'm a filmmaker who's, I haven't released any of my films in the theater, but I have made 5 films and I've only had festival runs. 2 of my recent films, 3 of my films are been in A-list festivals, and for me, they are an opening to the world, and also addressing the first question that you guys were talking about, the audience shouldn't be limited to a particular region or time, even in my opinion, and the cinema is there to stay forever. So when you are I'm not making definitely not making films for any platform as such, and I'm what I'm trying to do is to keep on making films, like Aashiq said, and hoping that they will reach the right audience in the due time. And if you don't put an expiry date on your film, there's always a hope that at some point in time people will find it out, and it will be talked about. And that happened with my first film too. The first talk about that film happened after 3 years after making the film. So there's always hope for my future films too, I hope, as long as I can stay honest to what I'm trying to make, and as long as the stories are true to the culture and life of and my experiences.
In your industry, actually, except for Anna, who also decided when she was auditioning for the film not to reveal who her father was, but everybody else coincidentally here is what in Bollywood we call an outsider, like with no connection to the industry at all. Like none of you had any connections in the industry and you joined the industry. So how do you break into the Malayalam film industry?
For me, I did have a connection. Director Ranjit is a distant relative of mine, but that never again connected as a route to get into the industry. For me at least, it was my mother who was extremely excited to send me for beauty pageants and stuff. So she's the one who sent my pictures in for audition, and that's how Notebook happened. And so for me, the natural route was to again go for an audition, either get the role, and then I fell in love with cinema. So I continued.
Can we get access to those pageant videos?
There is one
Bejoy
sent to me which I can distribute.
Yeah, I have those thin line eyebrows and bushy hair, and I'll send you guys. No, the fun times actually, because that was 15 years ago, and I see a major shift in the way the actors who are coming in. To be honest, for me, it's helping the writing a lot. The diverse quality that new actors are bringing in, especially what Darshana is bringing, Anna is bringing in. I think what happened, it's there was a golden era, and of course, it's hopefully still continuing. We'll look at it in hindsight and then realize this was also another golden era. But there was a time when it got fixed between, especially for women, that there'd be a few actresses to go around, and you can't go into the supporting actor space. So you have to be very careful with your strategy. This also kind of ties in with the other question that you had said earlier. There are elements in the industry who would constantly tell you, go do a Telugu film, make money, and come to Malayalam to do realistic characters. Or, there are techniques, to how to get across to a particular director, and it's probably not the most straightforward way to come into the industry. But I feel like because of social media boom and the kind of access that has opened up, all kinds of like those curtains have been lifted off. So talent is entirely welcome, and especially with the kind of writing and direction that's happening in Malayalam cinema, there are no token characters that are just aiding the main characters. Every character has a full arc given, and that's the trust that I feel like actors who are coming in can place in directors in wanting to, at least in the beginning for me, it was not easy to ask for a full script and a character, if I'm especially playing a character role, to ask for a full screenplay. I think that culture has completely changed. So you go in for the audition, you ask what your character is without being like gaslit for it. I guess it's a very straightforward way forward, but I guess for me 15 years ago that wasn't an easy route at all. And I would like to actually know from Darshana and Anna how things are now, when you came in, and how straightforward it is for actors to come in.
It was not a conscious decision to not reveal my father's name. It just I did not find it very necessary, it being an audition. It did not make sense to me. And to be honest, it was more of me fearing my father not wanting me to get into something like that, just from a father perspective, not even from a writer perspective. So I just wanted to try this out so bad, and majorly because, like you guys said, there's been a shift. So I've never identified with that small gap of films that happen where the heroine does the dance and it's so glamorous and doing all that. I could never identify with that. I could never see myself doing that. But the shift later on, where there were so many inspiring characters, female characters, that it made me very curious on if I try something like that. And also, being in the industry or outside industry, if you don't deliver, I don't think there's no space for you. You have to deliver. You have to have the passion, and you have to connect to the audience. The audience don't care where you're coming from, and they see you on screen and they fall in love with you, and that's when you go forward with different movies. So my experience has been throughout the auditions, and it's been wonderful. And I think that was the best way that I could find independently how to get into films.
I think this is like what Parvathy was talking about, how say 10 years ago or some time back, how it was so different for an actor, or specifically women in this industry, finding work that they connect to or resonate with. I think I've had a lot of conversations with someone like Kani Kushruti, who's a brilliant actor, and she's, I think, started at a time which was very different from when I started exploring the space. Today, if I'm able to think of like 5 directors I want to work with, there is a way for me to audition for them. There is a way for me to reach them in some way. Like I auditioned for Aashiq and Maya Nadi the first time. It was through an audition. And I feel like it's a lot more reachable. It's a lot more accessible. It's a lot more, you can, I think Geetu probably first saw me in Anjali ma'am's Kude, and I was playing a small part in it. And that's when she asked me to audition for Rajiv Ravi's Thiruvothu. So I feel like it doesn't feel like such a difficult way to, it doesn't feel like such a faraway thing. Today I'm able to be here and look at all of these brilliant directors and, want and hope and know that it's possible that I could work with these people. So I think I'm in it's a sort of a comfort. I mean, it hasn't been easy, of course not, but I know that it's not impossible in the space that actors are today, or,
I did my first Malayalam film in 2015, and at that point, I think there was already a little bit of an audition culture starting off, sprouting in different. Because a few years before that, the time that you mentioned where the turn happened, we all of us, my friends from school, I had disconnected from Malayalam films for a while when I was in Chennai, and all of my friends from school, everyone here, we were all talking about new gen padam. So new generation films, and that's the time when say Parvathy and Reema and all came, and that's when I first watched them, and like I caught their films and all much later. So suddenly there were so many more actors, so many more filmmakers, and at that point you sort of recognize the actors more. You're not even looking at names of directors, because honestly I wasn't thinking about getting into films. I didn't think it was practical. I didn't think it would happen. But when these actors came in, it sort of somewhere gives you the idea that there is no particular mold anymore, or the brackets are pretty wide. A lot of people can fit into the space. And in 2015, I happened to be here in Kochi for like there was a family thing that I needed to be in Kochi for. Held me here for like a month or two. At that point, all I did was Google film production houses in Kochi, and whatever showed up on the map, I'd try going them. It could be a dead end, or that could be like a small makeshift office. It led me to Friday Film House. I walked in with printed pictures of myself from plays I was in, and I said, I'm an actor. I want to audition for anything that you're casting for. And that worked. I auditioned for 2 films for them, and I shot 1 film. I got a small part in one. And around the same time, another much senior director, A.K. Sarjan sir, he also called me in for a very informal audition. It happened at his house, but it felt very much like an audition for me. So there was a way to, and I'm sure there's a lot more structure to this right now. And everyone I speak to, all of their stories of how it began is so different that I never know how to tell what this one way is to get into the industry if you're an outsider. But I think when I first started working here, I kept all of my stuff in Bombay. I rented my room out to someone else, but I didn't shift here until a whole 2.5 years later, when I felt like, okay, maybe now it's okay to make the move. So I kept telling everyone in Bombay that no, I still live in Bombay. Please call me for work. And I kept telling everyone here that, oh, I live in Kochi. Please call me for work. But somewhere in those first few years, if you just try really hard and do your job, I think you can get in.
I was just loitering around, yeah, and my talent, they couldn't resist it, until I started talking about feminism and shit, then they didn't want me. But yeah. But yeah, I had done a reality show. I was a dancer. I was working in Bangalore in a dance company. I was a professional contemporary dancer. And then I was doing this reality show. I never really thought of movies as an option, just like Roshan was saying. I didn't even think it was practical. But I was a performer. I wanted to be on stage, and I really didn't pursue it as well. But then, I finished after my reality show. I was going back to Bangalore. My parents were there, but a friend suggested there was Miss Kerala happening the very next week or something, and I'm like, okay, Miss Kerala sounds fun. I have some clothes. Let's go. And I was first runner-up or something, and I'm like, okay, so this is done. Let's go back to Bangalore. And suddenly I got called for auditions because I was on a magazine cover, and somebody called me for an audition. Not somebody, Shyama Prasad sir called me for an audition. And I audition. So I am roaming around with a suitcase from Trivandrum to Cochin, and my parents are in Bangalore. I'm like, okay, my audition is done. I'll go back. Shyam sir is like, no, I want you to sign a contract. I'm like, really? Okay. And I do my first film, but I still, I have an unconventional face. I have an unconventional voice. I didn't even know if I fit in here. I was quite shocked when Shyam sir asked me to dub for my role, because I really thought, I didn't have a heroine voice somehow. I finished my first film, and I was all ready to go back. But then Laljo sir called, and I was getting back-to-back films. At that point, quite frankly, I was quite surprised because I had no training. I mean, I really didn't know I could do this. But I really have to thank Shyama Prasad sir for kind of initiating me into this whole movie world. How he kind of handheld me into this. In that respect, he's my guru. He made me comfortable in front of the camera. He gave me an acting work, not just me. So it was a crew of newcomers. Every single actor in that movie was a first-time actor. So that kind of took off a lot of pressure. And we were given acting workshops. The cinematographer Shyam that came and stayed with us for like a week before we started training, and he gave us, he kind of told us how we should behave, and there is this whole culture in cinema where first-time actors are ragged on set. I don't know if it's still there, but they'll ask you to give focus for the camera, and that a first-time actor wouldn't know what to do, and they'll be like, look at the camera, look into the lens, and all of that. It kind of happens. The soft dragging happens, but then we were ready. Like the first shot I gave in my life, I was ready, like ever. As if I was born to do this. It was, and there was no looking back. So yeah, for me at least, it was a cakewalk because it was Shyama Prasad.
Now that there is a new audience that is being found, I'm not talking about storytelling, but are there changes that you feel that will come into the industry to kind of, make the cinema, the peripheries of it, in terms of the logistics of it, make it a little more accessible for do you think that alters your ambition now that you've seen what happens when your cinema is received by a completely different audience? Does that also motivate you to kind of take measures to let it reach out to more people, make it more accessible? And I'm not talking about content. I'm not talking about altering storylines for it. And the second thing is that what is it that OTTs can actually do to not only preserve, but while preserving, also pushing the kind of work that you do?
I believe at the end of the day, we're here to tell stories. And be it an OTT platform, be it a filmmaker, be it actors, all of us would like to reach the widest audience. That is really, it redeems our journey. It's wonderful. But we need to work together for that. And when you are dealing with industries who do not have a studio culture, to suddenly expect them to shape-shift and fit into a sort of a studio culture form is not maybe the best way to approach it. I think it's important for us to recognize that today in the OTT space, everyone we speak to, actually 90% of them are people who have come from the mainstream Hindi film industry, who are used to a very studio-oriented system. And when it's the same people dealing with the rest of the country in this kind of content generation, it cannot work in that same way. Just as when we go to a new land, we try to learn the language and the culture of that place. When you're dealing with people who work in a certain way, I think it's important for us to mutually understand, recognize, and learn, how to work together. I think it would be very helpful if a certain cultural representation was achieved at the OTT level as well, where people understand what this language is about, what this culture is about, where are they coming from, why are they making their films like this, what is a film of a certain region, because that will actually inform them to deal with those filmmakers better, that will inform them to deal with that kind of cinema better. And a lot of the pressures we face as filmmakers who work in a different system, I think that can be brought down definitely. And you'd simply get better content made for a larger number of people. So that kind of input, I think, will really help from the OTT platforms. Secondly, from my limited understanding, they haven't really opened up, to all languages. No, I think they're still looking at it very much from a market-oriented point of view, where Tamil, Telugu are definitely prioritized much higher than many of the other industries. And what that actually indicates is that they're referring to a template which already exists, which is the film industry's template, about which are the biggest markets, where are the biggest budgets going. Wouldn't it be better to look at which films are being watched? Wouldn't it be better if these OTT channels were to look at their own data and see that, if a certain kind of cinema is being watched more, then try and invest there more and retain the authenticity of the content. When we're asked to make everything into Hindi, it may not really translate well. We may not be motivated to make that story in Hindi. It's so important when you're talking to OTTs at an international level, they actually come back and say, do it in the authentic language.
Yes.
And in India, we speak multiple languages. Everybody here speaks multiple languages. That is our authenticity. It's high time that is recognized and that is sort of brought into the frame.
Indian film cannot be restricted by borders and by languages, and we are a multilingual culture, and that needs to show. That really needs to kind of come in, and we do that at the festival. You being from a when you have a programming team, I'm just talking about how you program a festival. When you have a programming team, you have to have age diversity, you have to have language diversity. You cannot otherwise do justice to what you're programming. So that, I think, applies across the board. Mahesh, what about you? What do you think?
I'm considering this is as a filmmaker's perspective. Like whenever you're writing something for a digital platform, like the entire screenplay structure has to be changed. It is not the regular structure which we write for the cinema. I mean, the theatrical thing, because it is my personal viewpoint. I'm finding that everybody, the audience is also directly in interaction with the filmmaker, because they have this new device called the remote. The remote is the biggest tool for them because So I used to make a statistics. Earlier days when there was YouTube only for the streaming things. The fast forward button was kept for, like, say it was like 25 seconds, I think. Later it was diminished to 15 seconds. Now it's 10 seconds. Like, now, so sorry, the other way around. Like, now it's 20 seconds. Now it is going the other way around. Like, you can skip very easily now. So they're testing the patience level of people, like, the viewers. How much you want to see, like how much you want to perceive this entire scene. If you don't want to see this particular sequence, you can skip it. So right now, so there is a sit-field structure when they say that, okay, the first 10th minute, you will have to make your audience right away into the film. Now it's not like that. I'm feeling that it's more like the first minute itself. You have to make your audience more immersed into that film. Otherwise, you're gone. So me and Sanu had a big discussion while editing Arkariyam. Like, I still, Sanu can add up to that. So it is like a slow burn kind of a film what he has made. And I've been telling him that, Sanu, listen, there is a possibility where where people will try to skip this when something like this is going to put it on a streaming platform. But Sanu has his own points. Why? Because he said, okay, that is not the case where where a film like Monk, if we can take, like, it's an Oscar contender, like it has been like it has its own values, but there is a constant battle which is going to be played along with a filmmaker is on a random process where his main enemy is his viewer itself. Like, stay for this scene, at least watch this particular shot, and then you skip it. So right now I am in this dilemma to like how to take it forward, like how to write it in terms of content wise, like how I need to pitch it to the next generation of people. Like, now I'm learning it from, like, I'm in the learning process. I'm doing a little bit of R&D and all. So I don't know whether it makes sense and all, but this is what I'm doing much. Like, I'm doing a little bit research on that. I'm sitting on that, yeah.
So I've been shooting like a lot of commercials. When you shoot a commercial, you're very aware that this might be viewed on TV in the middle of a kid screaming, doorbell ringing, pizza guy coming in. It's in the middle of all that you watch. The way the viewing happens. Theater is that one place where you had that captive audience. You could take him to the edge of boredom, and because he has paid money and come in, he'll sit and go through it. That situation is changing. You need to catch people by the throat very early now. With new media coming in, you need to be, writing needs to step up to it. Communicating to a different generation, which is already very accustomed to a lot of reality stuff in terms of what is there on the YouTube and this and that, and they're on social media. You need to start communicating to that generation. You need to start communicating to the attention spans which are changing. You need to address that. I think it's just going to be like constant learning, because the change is too much for us to kind of be sticking to a place. You have to kind of start swimming within this, and we really don't know how these things are going to change.
Still remember, during the beginning of the pandemic, Sanu was asked to shoot commercials in a vertical format, shoot from his house.
Correct.
Sanu was telling
and I'm saying I need to relearn cinema for that.
We don't know vertical format. We don't know how to.
How do you cut? How does the cuts happen? I have no idea. You need to relearn.
Yeah.
I did my short film in 2009. So I think it's around the 2000, Sanu, like late 90s and 2000s, the digital format the boom has happened. And I think it's the starting of 2000 that it's really hit us as well. So the period in which they were talking about the new generation cinema, and an influx of films that were coming in with different narrators and stuff. Like, I think there is a lot, and this is clearly my opinion, but there is a lot that has translated with visual medium, the visual narrative of it. Because when you see the grains of how you can shoot on a film and what that, the feel of that from moving to a digital, it's visually itself, it was different. So all that did add to that revolution of the so-called new generation that you're talking about. So similarly, this is really, really scary. Like, I'm just hearing Mahesh talk and Sanu talk about how you need to step up with the script and the sensibilities of people. And it's like a learning. It actually dawned on me the second when they're saying this, because then I'm in big shit. Like, I'm in big trouble. Because I, for once, like, maybe that's possibly the reason why there are like my films are coming one far between. The reason, because I want to tell it the way I want to tell it. I don't think I ever cater to a particular audience. I think the way I want to function is I want to tell you the story the way my beats work, how I want to tell you. Sit back and relax. And I feel that is the discovery of me as a filmmaker that I have made so far. The second, when I heard them say, and they make absolute sense, like, I can hear it and I know what they're meaning. It's not that it is what we want to do. It is something which we are kind of forced to think about. And that thought is really scaring me, because if I have to do that, then I don't know if I'll be able to make my next film, like, just to sort of understand how these beats work, and to make sure that the audience is just hang on 5 minutes. Come on, the next scene, we promise you, that. That's scary. That's scary.
No, I'll chip in again. While I say that, I'm also aware that ultimately you are dealing with a medium which is all about emotions, and beyond a point, probably searching inward and telling it the way you feel it will probably connect to a lot more people than trying to fit into templates of how communication happens. I mean, because it's a artistic medium. So ultimately, you probably, everybody needs to do what you're talking about, kind of, tell stories the way they want to say and be connected, so that, you are part of a real moving world and you end up connecting anyway, because you're coming from there. Probably, looking inward is what it is. But these are fears,
എനിക്ക് ഭയങ്കര ഹാപ്പി ആയിട്ട് തോന്നിയെന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ സാനു ആൻഡ് മഹേഷ് ദേ ആർ സ്കേർഡ്. പേടിയുണ്ട്. ഞാനും അതെ. ഗീതു പറഞ്ഞു പേടിയാവുന്നു. ഐ തിങ്ക് ആ പേടിയാണ് നമ്മളെ മുന്നോട്ട് കൊണ്ടുപോകുന്നത് എന്നാണ്. അപ്പോൾ എല്ലാ ഫിലിം മേക്കേഴ്സും ഒരേപോലെ പേടിച്ചിരിക്കുകയാണ്. കാരണം എല്ലാ സിനിമയും യു ഷുഡ് ബി റെഡി ഫോർ എ ഹാർട്ട് ബ്രേക്ക് വെൻ യു ആർ ഗോയിങ് ടു മേക്ക് എ ഫിലിം. സോ അപ്പോൾ അത് ഇറ്റ്സ് എ വെരി പെയിൻഫുൾ പ്രോസസ് ടു മേക്ക് എ ഫിലിം, ടു റൈറ്റ് എ ഫിലിം. So you should be ready for a heartbreak. And ഇത് പേടി ഉണ്ടാവും, അത് ഉറപ്പായിട്ടും ഉണ്ട്. I think the festivals like MAMI is showcasing some of the curated content from Indian cinema, which is a very, very good thing, I think, because after the recent festivals you guys did, and the film companion Anupama Chopra, the all those film enthusiasts and journalists came in, and they just took our cinema to another level, another audience, thanks to you guys. And
yes.
And OTT platforms, see, what I understand is it's a clash of methods. We do cinema in a democratic method, and they come up with a corporate method. These methods won't work together. That's what I understand. So we share a very, very chilled out, friendly, and we have a culture of cooperative societies in Kerala. You have heard of this thing, no? Indian Coffee House. It's a cooperative society from Kerala, and they have recently opened a 5-star hotel in Kannur. So we have that kind of camaraderie between us, between actors, between writers. Sanu and Mahesh are friends. We all are friends. So we don't have that kind of corporate culture in us. So it's easier to work in a more democratic, which we are very familiar to. Especially when it's the audience who are making the difference. That's what I believe. They choose cinema, they go to theater, for certain cinemas, and they make that film successful, and then these corporates notice that cinema. So the audiences, they are far more educated, visually educated than us, so we should be scared of them.
This is actually less of an opinion and more of like, in a manner of speaking, a mental health check with my fellow actors. Like, hi, I think there is another wave of rewiring that's happening with me, where I am and where you all are in your mind in terms of ambition and what OTT and what theatrical releases do. I think I keep sort of like a pendulum going back and forth between extreme optimism to borderline cynicism. It's been happening a lot, especially because of the pandemic also. But also, I think it adds to our challenge as performers, because when it was only theatrical releases and majority theatrical releases, there was still a little bit of, no matter how prolific we are with our work or not, there was still a bit of a spaced out, and please correct me if I'm wrong in this observation, there was a little bit of spaced out way that we could put our work in front of the audience, like as performers, as different characters that we embody. What OTT is doing is sort of sort of like taking away those gaps in time, and we get the opportunity to do a lot more diverse roles and a lot often than before. But it also kind of makes us not be complacent. Like we cannot afford to be complacent with the kind of, we will get diverse roles, and that's amazing. We will get a lot more opportunities, hopefully, for all of us. But that also means that we got to keep stepping up our game, or like taking different routes in constantly checking in with where we stand with our craft. And I think that's been a challenge for me, because I keep wanting to like look back and see that, wait a second, did you become redundant in that, or did you go complacent with that work? Because we kind of been on autopilot for a while. And I know with content and creators and makers, there is a lot more departments to work with. But for me to check in as an actor, I mean, while moving into the sphere of creation, that is still continuing, and I'm listening. I'm more of an observer at this point. But as a performer, I would love to hear from my fellow actors here how they are feeling with this boom of OTT, in how they wish to rewire or probably stay chill. I don't know.
So I come from a finance background, and I have a whole world that when I started doing films, it's something that they've. They know I've shifted into another space, but nothing that they've seen, nothing that they've, oh, she's doing something else. I think it's around See You Soon when they're like, oh, you're doing this, like this is actually a thing. You're professionally doing this. So, I think something like these platforms and being on this suddenly has made it, I don't know how to say this, but it's a lot more out there, and that comes with its good and bad. I guess there's I don't know if Parvathy saw this, but I sent her a message like 2 days back, and I suddenly it felt it's so strange, because I've been getting a lot of hate as well, and that's very new. I'm not used to it, so I was just 2 days back. It was just it's just right after a film that came out, and I was really confused with the amount of. It's just because we're all out there, and I think there's so much something like an OTT platform and the audiences it's reaching. We have no control over it, and along with the good, there's a lot of not so nice. There are things that I'm also sort of figuring my way around, and I'm finding my way around. So yeah, I think it's going to take our time. It's going to, but yeah. I guess.
I understand. I relate. I do.
Yeah. I was just telling, I don't know how you've been doing this for so long, because it's like 2 days of hate messages and suddenly you're just like, what did I do? Like, I don't understand what this is. And,
Did our work. That's all we did.
Yeah, and it's part of the deal. It's as along with the good, I just have to accept the bad.
I'm trying this tactic of not thinking about it. Uh, I think so far it hasn't changed the way I turn up for shoot or changed the way I do anything that I do there. The only change that I have noticed is a couple of weeks ago, somebody sent me a script to read and I read it, and this question propped up, which I asked this person also, whether he was intending it for an OTT platform or for a theater. So I think in terms of like when you read something, somehow that's subconsciously gotten, does this belong here or does it belong there? So that's the only distance that I've felt between the two. Apart from that, now, like since I've been down with COVID and all, I haven't shot in the last month. But until the last time that I was shooting, it didn't change how I was working. I'm hoping that can stay and that it works also, that I don't get thrown out because I'm not altering my ways. Stop scaring me, Parvathy. Okay, bye.
I completely resonate with what Roshan said, because now when the scripts come in or when the directors talk, they say that this is for OTT and this is for theater, which it's so confusing because I can't place it how I can divide it into two, like a theater and OTT, because when you read it, you read as a viewer and then you read as an artist, and then this is one thing that you get. You connect with the story, you connect with the character, and that's it. I don't know how I can divide it into an OTT platform and just a theater film. And I think it's this unknown territory that we're getting into. So I think we have to just wait and explore and see how it goes. Like Roshan said, I'm not going to think about it much.
Yeah, we don't even have enough information to, be the judge of, this would work on an OTT, this would work in the. Only Mahesh doing R&D as of now. So we'll wait for.
Yeah, I think the makers
will wait for his data.
Makers will understand more on how it might work and might not. I think the artists need to trust the makers on how they're going to take the film forward into whichever platform they're preferring to.
And I think that's also, we're in that space because like when See You Soon happened and when Fahad and Mahesh reached out to us, for me they said, we don't know where this is going to be or what it could be on a YouTube channel for all you know. But, it's going to be, if you're excited by the idea of this uncertainty and us figuring it out. And I was immediately on it. So I don't think those are things that have started playing as much in the work. I think the presence and online and all of that, it's changing a little. But in terms of work, like they said, it's pretty much the same.
And luckily, we're not the ones making it. No, it's them, and we're just helping them make it.
Good thing they're not listening.
Less responsibility.
Guys, thank you so much for giving me this kind of time. It was just lovely listening to you. And I just hope that we continue to keep seeing great cinema coming out of the Malayalam industry. And if there's any way that we can be useful, please just write in, talk to us, let us know what we can do. But just love watching what you guys make. And it's just...
But it's thanks to you, Smriti. You've really championed us out there. Thank you so much for what you do.
Meeting you all.
Yeah, very nice meeting and talking to everyone.
To watch all the Jio MAMI Industry Programme conversations, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Jio MAMI Mumbai Film Festival. To watch the conversations on Dial M for Films, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Jio MAMI Mumbai Film Festival.